Welcome, the new video. In this recap, a careless mistake almost got her kicked out of the army, but that same punishment led her to meet a dog no one could control. What started as a punishment turned into the most dangerous war partnership ever. Together, they saved dozens of lives in Iraq, but one explosion changed everything forever. And when the army tried to take that dog away from her, she fought the entire system to get him back. In 2001, in New York, young Megan Levy lived with her mother, who constantly alternated between jobs she hated. Things only worsened when her best friend passed away, and the girl isolated herself in her room, without any prospects for the future. However, one day, while walking down the street, she saw two uniformed Marines entering a recruitment base. Somehow, that was the turning point in Megan's life, and she volunteered to participate in training with the American Army. Hidden from her mother, the girl packed her things, took a bus, and went to a military camp in South Carolina. After months of arduous training, including climbing, heavy exercises, and combat techniques, Megan finally graduated from the Army. As she had expected, her mother arrived late to the graduation ceremony and seemed more interested in military life insurance than in her daughter's achievement. Fortunately, Megan became one of the recruits to patrol a Marine base and left her mother's house, staying in one of the barracks. However, on a night off, Megan and two friends go to a bar and drink more than they should. On their way out, she desperately needs to use the restroom, but since there isn't one nearby, she goes behind a garden in the dorm. The problem is that she did this right next to the chief sergeant's office, and when one of the guards sees everything, she is reported for misconduct. The next day, the chief sergeant is so furious that he threatens to fire Megan for her behavior, but decides to give her a chance. From that day on, she will have to help clean the kennel where the Marines' guard dogs are kept. Upon arriving, Megan needs to clean all the doghouses until, in one of them, she finds a German shepherd named Rex. She tries to approach him, but the dog becomes aggressive and attempts to bite her. Soon after, the second-in-command, Sergeant Martin, appears at the kennel and says he has another job for Megan to do. This time, she must wear protective gear and go to the field where the dog handling training takes place. In the first test, the dog bites the sleeve of the suit, but as soon as the soldier gives the command, it stops the attack and returns to its position. The next test is to capture a fugitive, and Megan must run across the field wearing her protective suit. However, the dog this time is Rex, a German shepherd, who, upon seeing the young soldier, lunges at her and begins to bite her pants instead of her suit. Megan isn't injured, but the dog's attitude gives her new motivation, and she promises she'll tame it somehow. The young woman then asks the sergeant what it takes to be a dog trainer, but he replies that it won't be easy, as the candidate must have the highest score on the physical test and the weapons handling test. Nevertheless, in the following days, Megan wakes up early to exercise and tries to improve her aim on the shooting tests. All of her effort pays off, and on the day of the evaluation, the young woman achieves a score above 90% on the tests, having the best score among the candidates. She then goes to speak with Sergeant Martin, but before taming a dog, Megan needs to pass another endurance test. This time, she is required to wear a can tied with a leash to simulate controlling a dog around the training field. Megan even has to take him to behavior classes, which are overseen by a veterinarian. During one part of the training, the doctor tells everyone to remove their collars, but when it's Rex's turn, the first corporal tries to take it off, but the dog becomes aggressive again and bites his hand. Because of this, Sergeant Martin decided to remove him from duty to treat his injury, and gives Megan the chance to take care of the dog. The young soldier accepts, and goes to the kennel to bring Rex's food, but when she tells him to wait in the doghouse, the dog doesn't obey and starts barking. Megan doesn't give up and decides to sit in front of the cage, waiting until the dog obeys her. After hours of waiting, the dog finally lies down in its kennel, and Megan is finally able to leave the food bowl inside. Days later, she and other soldiers go to a training exercise where the dogs must identify the location of bombs in a staged scenario. The training is coordinated by Sergeant Andrew, who has just returned from the war in Iraq and is an expert in taming dogs. When it's Megan's turn, she tries to guide the dog through the scene, but Rex doesn't obey her and goes another way. She tries to pull him back, but the sergeant orders them to continue, as he realized the dog found the bomb he had placed in a secret location. After the test, the sergeant says that Rex is a great tracking dog, but Megan needs to bond with him, or people could lose their lives on a real mission. The soldier accepts the advice and, over the days, Megan and the dog develop a stronger bond. After many months of training, Megan and other soldiers are sent to Iraq, where they will work alongside their dogs for 7 months. The plane journey is long, and as soon as they arrive in the country, the soldier is sent to the military base in the city of Ramadi. At dawn, she is introduced to her guide, Corporal Morales, who also looks after a tracking dog named Chico. After days of adjusting to the base's routine, Megan finally receives her first mission, where she will accompany a military group inspecting drivers on the road. During the inspection, a man and his son are stopped inside their car, and the sergeant orders Megan and her dog to examine the vehicle. The officer then lets the dog sniff the entire car, but Rex finds nothing suspicious, and they are released. Before they leave, the boy asks the dog's name, but the sergeant tells him to get in the car quietly. Discreetly, Megan says his name is Rex, but noticing this, the sergeant reprimands her, because the enemy could lure the dog into a trap if they knew its name. Megan promises to be more careful, and the inspection of the city ends without major incident. Upon returning to base, the young soldier is proud of Rex's work, and even though there are still 6 months left, she promises that they will both return home safely. The pair continue to conduct inspections, and even during their rest periods, Megan trains Rex more frequently than the other trainers. One night, in the 3rd month of their mission, Megan is called away in the middle of the night for a special job. Although recruits are not allowed to participate in combat missions, one of the groups has been eliminated and they need reinforcements. Megan then hurries to gather her things, and alongside Rex, she drives off to the eastern area of Ramadi. Upon arrival, the group begins inspecting all the houses, searching for hidden weapons and bombs. They eventually find a resident, and once the area is secure, the soldiers begin questioning him about weapons in the region. The man denies everything and says he is in favor of the American army to confront the country's insurgents. However, the sergeant is not convinced and orders his team to search the house, where they find a room full of carpets. The resident justifies himself, saying that they are used in religious ceremonies, and he bought several for his family. The sergeant then orders him to remove them all, and the man begins to rummage through everything in the wardrobe, saying that there is nothing inside. However, Rex starts to get agitated, and Megan tells him to sniff the carpets to see if there's anything hidden in them. After investigating everything, the dog sits down and stands in front of a wall, indicating that there's something strange in that place. The soldiers then investigate and discover that behind a rug hanging on the wall, there is a hole containing dozens of weapons and bombs. The resident of the house tries to escape, but is apprehended by the group, who take him prisoner and collect all the weapons. With the mission accomplished, Morales congratulates Megan and Rex, as their combined efforts saved lives that night. Because of this, the entire battalion comes to respect the young soldier and her tracking dog, with the group celebrating the victory within the base. Later, Morales and Megan play cards together, while Rex observes everything, quiet and well-behaved like a true guard dog. During the game, Morales asks how the young woman joined the army, and she says it was a way to escape the life she hated so much. He also notices that Megan has a tattoo on her arm with the name Jessie written on it. She then reveals that this was the name of her childhood friend, and the two were like siblings, spending time together throughout high school. Tragically, at a high school party, the two drank excessively, taking some pills together to see how much they could handle. After hours of unconsciousness, Megan managed to recover, but Jessie didn't wake up and was rushed to the hospital, but he didn't survive. From that day on, Megan feels guilty about what happened to her friend, believing that she should have lost her life instead. However, being part of the army gave her a reason to continue, especially after meeting Rex. More weeks pass, and in the 6th month, Megan and Rex continue to accompany the soldiers on combat missions. On one of them, the group crosses a city highway, and Rex begins sniffing the area, searching for bombs. Suddenly, the dog stops, and upon closer inspection, Megan sees an explosive device attached to the road's guardrail. She then makes a hand signal, indicating for the group not to approach, with the pair once again saving their team from a potential tragedy. The duo's work is so well received that, on another mission, Morales volunteers to go with Chico, but the sergeant decides to call Megan. With the team ready, 2 armored vehicles head to the western region of Ramadi, and upon stopping at a stretch of road, Megan and Rex begin their work. Suddenly, the dog sniffs something in the ground, and seeing that it's a sign of a bomb, Megan plants a flag at the spot. The two continue doing this, and after 2 hours of marking explosives everywhere, the soldier lets Rex rest for a while. While the group waits, a car begins to approach, and one of the soldiers points his weapon, but the driver continues to move forward. The soldier then fires a warning shot, and the car finally stops, with the driver getting out and lifting his shirt to prove he is not carrying bombs. After that, the group orders the man to lie on the ground, and as soon as he is handcuffed, the sergeant orders Megan to inspect the vehicle. She and Rex then slowly walk towards the car, but when they are almost there, a bomb explodes right next to them. Megan and Rex are thrown a considerable distance, with the soldier momentarily losing her voice, while her dog falls unconscious to the ground. Desperate, she rushes to help him, while the other soldiers carry them both safely to the vehicle. Gradually, Megan regains her hearing, and the sergeant asks how she didn't detect that bomb during the inspection. However, one of the soldiers looks at the hole more closely and realizes it wasn't a landmine, but a bomb connected to a detonator wire. Megan notices the wire extending towards some abandoned buildings and deduces that this was a planned attack. The soldiers suspect that she and Rex were the targets, because if they had been eliminated, the American army would have lost its best bomb detectors. The sergeant then orders the pair to be taken back to base, but Megan thinks this is risky, as there may be more bombs on the site. Once Rex recovers, she asks to continue the mission and track down more bombs until they search the buildings. The soldiers then prepare their weapons and analyze the buildings, which appeared to be empty. Walking slowly across the field, they proceed under the leadership of Megan and Rex, who, upon smelling another bomb, stops walking and sits on the ground. Megan then places another flag at the site, and the group continues walking until they reach the abandoned buildings. 2 of them are empty, and the group proceeds to the third, which was actually a school for children. Upon reaching the roof, they find explosive equipment, along with detonators, indicating that those responsible are still nearby. The group tries to locate the criminals when, suddenly, Rex begins barking at one of the group's soldiers, named Gomes. Finding the dog's behavior strange, Megan tells him to behave, and Gomes heads to the other side of the roof. As he does so, Rex bites the soldier's backpack and knocks him to the ground. Seconds before a man, armed with a bazooka, fires a rocket towards the roof. Thanks to Rex, Gomes manages to protect himself from the explosion, and the group identifies 3 armed individuals among the rubble. A shootout begins, and military vehicles start firing, providing cover for Megan and the others to exit the building. The soldier and her dog try to escape, but another bomb is detonated, and the explosion causes everyone to fall down the stairs. Once they recover from the attack, the group continues to flee, with soldiers Gomes and Johnson providing cover, allowing Megan and Rex to move forward. Amid the crossfire, armored vehicles approach the group, and everyone gets into the vehicle, leaving only Megan and her dog. As soon as they find an opening, they run towards the car, and Rex manages to get in, but another rocket is fired, and Megan ends up falling to the ground. Quickly, Rex runs after his companion and stays by her side, even as gunfire swirls everywhere. The vehicle sped away, and they positioned themselves in front of the 2 to protect them, but they couldn't wait much longer. Once again, Rex and Megan rush into the car and manage to get inside, with everyone safely driving back to base. Minutes later, they arrive at the location and a helicopter is waiting for Megan to take her to the hospital urgently. Even wounded, she asks to stay with Rex, but the dog is left at the base, and Morales promises to take care of him. Finally, Megan is taken away in the helicopter and begins to cry, after experiencing the trauma of war and being separated from her best friend. Hours later, Megan wakes up in the hospital, with the doctor saying she injured her eardrums, but luckily, the damage wasn't permanent. Even so, she's cleared to spend 3 months off the field until she fully recovers from the physical and psychological damage. Days pass, and during Christmas, Megan takes a plane back to her city and is greeted by her father, who hugs his daughter, relieved that she is all right. However, he will have to work on Christmas, and because of this, he leaves Megan at her mother's house. Even though she doesn't want to stay with her mother and stepfather, what bothers Megan most is being away from Rex. During her time away, she calls the Marines barracks to ask if her dog is okay, but Megan is informed that Rex hasn't returned from Iraq yet. The soldier spends days in anguish, fearing the worst has happened, until at the end of her leave, she receives permission to return to base. Upon arriving, she is greeted by Sergeant Andrew, who is happy to see her again and congratulates her on her excellent work on the mission. Furthermore, Andrew says that finally, the dog is back, and Megan runs to see him, with Rex overjoyed to see his companion again. The dog is also off work until he recovers from a paw injury. With the 2 of them together again, Megan helps the dog with its recovery while training new dog handlers at the base. One morning, she goes to her room and finds flowers with a message on the door, written by Morales. Soon after, he appears in the hallway, and Megan is happy to see him again, with the 2 enjoying the day in a romantic moment. Time passes inside the base, but months later, Megan and the soldiers receive the tragic news that Sergeant Andrew has been killed in combat. He lost his life in an explosion while protecting his tracking dog, named Bruno. The dog survived and is being cared for by the other soldiers, but upon returning to training, Megan notices that Bruno is restless, as if he were searching for someone. Sergeant Martin explains that the bond between a dog and its handler is eternal, and the dog will continue searching for Andrew until the end of its life. This tragedy leaves Megan thoughtful, and after days inside the Marine base, she decides she will no longer enlist in the Army. The following morning, she goes to give Sergeant Martin the news, saying that she will seek another purpose in life outside the Army. Furthermore, she asks for a letter of recommendation, requesting that Megan adopt Rex, as she wants to care for him and keep him away from the war. The sergeant understands her reasons and promises to write the letter, but in Megan's final days, she needs to take Rex for another veterinary checkup. Unfortunately, the dog is uncomfortable with the muzzle and acts aggressively, leading the veterinarian to advise against his discharge from the Army. Megan begs her to remove the note, otherwise he will be used on missions again and the two will never see each other again. The veterinarian, however, stands by her decision, and the soldier runs to speak with Sergeant Martin, asking for help. Although he understands Megan's bond with Rex, he says he can't do anything because the dog was trained for war. Because of this, any strange situation will be seen as a threat, and the dog will become aggressive, potentially attacking any innocent person. Still, the sergeant promises to give Megan a chance to say goodbye to Rex before he's sent back to Iraq. Unable to hold back her tears, Megan accepts and goes to the kennel to say goodbye to her best friend one last time. The next few months are very difficult, and to make matters worse, Morales has re-enlisted for a 51-month mission in Iraq. Because of this, the two end up growing even further apart, and Megan falls into a state of depression, missing him, and especially Rex. One morning, her mother knocks on the door, saying she has a special surprise for her daughter. When Megan comes out of her room, she sees her holding a puppy, saying she brought it to replace the dog that stayed in the Army. Megan is furious at the attitude, saying that her mother will never understand her and that nothing can replace Rex. Hearing this, Megan's mother becomes furious and says she's tired of seeing her daughter take advantage of her, living in her house doing nothing all day. Megan gets so furious that she packs her things and leaves, moving back into her father's house. She is welcomed back, but in addition to missing Rex, Megan begins to suffer from post-war stress. Because of this, one night, when her father's car alarm is accidentally triggered, Megan runs in desperately and tells her father not to leave the house. Due to the traumas from the war, she finds herself in the same situation she faced with bombs in the city, but her father helps her calm down. However, things only get worse the next day when Megan goes to the gas station and sees a dog barking inside a car. Believing the dog is trapped and hot inside, she grabs a baseball bat and goes to break the window when the car's owner appears. She yells at the man, telling him not to mistreat the dog, but he calls her a lunatic, saying his dog is fine. Seeing that her situation is going from bad to worse, Megan starts attending a support group for veterans, where she opens up about everything she has faced. In one of the meetings, she cries while remembering Rex, wondering what might have happened to him. Megan also confides that she was learning about unconditional love from him, but the group leader comforts her, saying that the dog has already taught her a lot during their time together. Despite this, Megan remains listless, alternating between meetings and isolating herself in her room. Noticing his daughter's state, her father goes to her room and says that he knows the feeling of losing everything you love most in life. However, even when you're at rock bottom, all that's left is to keep fighting, and he knows Megan is capable too, because she's a true Marine. The young woman, however, says she's lost without Rex, but her father advises her to fight to stay with him until the end. These words give Megan new motivation, and throughout the year, she starts working at a restaurant and calls the hostel every day. Megan always asks for information about Rex, and even without answers, she doesn't give up. Finally, on another day at work, Megan receives a call from the barracks, saying that Rex will finally be retired from the Army. The young woman is happy with the news, but the corporal warns her that at 10 years old, Rex is very ill and will have to be euthanized. To prevent this, Megan starts a campaign, seeking authorization from the Army to adopt Rex. Her first step is to ask Senator Chuck Schumer for help, and upon hearing her story, he agrees to assist the campaign, which soon becomes nationally famous. Over the following months, Megan gathers more than 22,000 signatures for the campaign, gives newspaper interviews, and her story touches the entire country. Thanks to this, she receives an invitation to the ceremony at the Marines barracks, where Rex and other dogs will be rehabilitated. Upon arriving, Megan reunites with Morales, who is happy to see her again and says he's participating in one last mission before leaving the Army. Furthermore, he brings good news, saying that the Army has finally given permission, and Megan will be able to adopt Rex. She can hardly believe it, and runs to the field, where she finally finds her friend again. Despite all this time apart, Rex immediately recognizes Megan and runs towards her, with his new owner hugging him emotionally. After the ceremony, the two head to their new home, and it doesn't take long for Rex to adjust to life away from the war. However, there's still one more ceremony to attend, and Megan is invited to an event organized by the Army at the field of her favorite baseball team, the Yankees. Upon arriving, they are cheered like war heroes, and the big screen shows a video message from Morales and the other soldiers, celebrating the pair's reunion. Subscribe for more recap videos.